So what do we do with this? I mean, as Americans, you and I talking about it, you and I raising the flag, what needs to happen to turn this around?
I think people need to wake up. And I don't know what it is that's going to cause people to wake up. I don't want there to be, I don't want it to have to be the extreme, which is that there's a terrorist attack in the country or something that makes people wake up. And I don't have the answer. I don't know what it's going to take for people to wake up because everything that I've seen to me is enough to wake up the entire nation. And if it hasn't, I don't know what else it's going to take.
I never thought in my lifetime I would hear the anti Semitic sort of things that I'm hearing now. When I'm hearing these chants of death to Israel, death to America, all of these anti Semitic slurs about Jews, and seeing these students praying. There were these students praying at the University of Texas. Is it the namaz?
Mm-hmm.
They don't even know what. I've tried to talk to some of these students on the UCLA campus. They don't even know enough about what they're doing to answer a fundamental basic question about why they're out there.
No, they have absolutely no idea what they're doing. They have no familiarity with the religion, the culture. They don't even the things that they're wearing. They're like, appropriating Middle Eastern dress. They don't know what it means. They don't know why they're wearing it. They don't know. They actually don't know anything about what they're doing. And this is exactly what indoctrination looks like.
No, they have no idea. And when you see who's leading the activities, they're 8, 10 years older than the actual students.
Mm-hmm.
We were there when they took down the encampment on the UCLA campus
Mm-hmm.
about 3:30 in the morning, and we went in with the police and the LA County Sheriff's Office. It was interesting when we were talking to the sheriff's department, the kind of SWAT units that were going in to take them down. I asked them, what's your thinking? What's your priority at this point? And they said, our number one priority is the safety of the protesters. And what happens will be determined by them. If we go in and say, okay, it's time to leave, although they had had numerous demands to leave that they had ignored, they said, we will still give them another chance to leave. And if they do, we'll just open a path for them and let them walk out. Some of them insist on being arrested. And if they do, we'll put restraints on them and put them on the bus and take them down and book them on a misdemeanor. But our number one concern is their safety. If they resist or they try to fight in some way, then they choose that. We don't want to do that. We're going to try to keep them safe. But they're telling us there are some older agitators there who aren't students, and they will try to get them to rush us and try to create a scene so they can have more drama. And we don't want that. We don't want to tase anybody. We don't want to spray anybody. We don't want to have to take anybody down. But there are outside people that are exploiting these kids. They don't know what they're doing, but they're going to try to get them to do that because they're trying to create problems.
I agree. And I think that a lot of this goes also to the culture of impunity within the schools themselves. There are no consequences for these actions. There's no consequences for this anti-Semitism. There are no consequences from ostracizing Jewish students or not allowing them on the campus. What is the consequence? When you hear them say things like go back to Poland or, whatever chants that they say to Jews, this would be completely unacceptable for any other ethnicity, right? If you said it to anybody from the Middle East or Africa, go back to Africa, go back to Iraq, go back to Syria, go back to Lebanon, those would be grounds to be expelled immediately. It would be, talked about everywhere. And yet there's such impunity for this blatant anti-Semitism to tell Jews to go back to Poland, right? Which is harrowing, because you're talking about a very sensitive matter. You're talking about the Holocaust, right? why do these schools facilitate such a hostile environment? Why do they not have any consequences for such bigotry, racism, hostility? When you ask that question, right, when that's lacking, is it really a surprise that we're seeing what we're seeing on the campuses? Because it's the schools themselves that apply this culture of impunity that has led to what we're seeing now.
You made a comment when we talked earlier that they've spent many years making these kids feel guilty for being white and having privilege. So now there's like, okay, we can balance the scales now by identifying with the oppressed. And if we can be surrogates for them, if we can stand in for them, then wow, we've done something where we can shirk this identity.
Well, you know, I don't know that it's as I think it's giving them a bit too much credit to say that they're trying to settle the score in some way or balance this out. What I think is that they're shirking their identity as privileged. And then the next thing is that, okay, once you've shirked your identity, which identity will you assume? And the identity that you assume is a favorable identity, an identity that is going to have you receive praise, that's going to make you seem whatever it is that gets your social validation, right? And the current identity to get social validation from is to be an oppressed person. And so that's why they step into the shoes of whoever or whatever looks like it is oppressed. And right now it's the Middle East. So they've shirked their old identity. They need to assume a new identity. That identity needs to be that of someone who is oppressed. And so they assume the identities and kind of replicate these scenes from the Middle East.
Who's funding this?
There are a lot of things being said now that Muslim Brotherhood is funding the SJP, Students for Justice of Palestine. I can't confirm any of this, but to be clear, if people don't know, Hamas is an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood. So when Hamas was created in 1987, that was after the Muslim Brothers' tenure since the beginning of this kind of conflict around the British Mandate time, which kind of teamed up with the Islamic Republic to create Hamas. So let's just say that the Muslim Brotherhood is the predecessor. And what I have heard, which I can't confirm, is that the Muslim Brotherhood has funded some of these organizers on campus.
Well, we followed the money on this pretty carefully. We've seen Rockefeller Brothers, George Soros, Westpac. We've seen a number of big money donors that funnel this down, and it does get to SJP and some of these other groups. They actually do have people on the payroll that are moving from campus to campus to campus, and they're kind of going in with an orientation pack, and it's like, these are the things we're going to push, these are the things that we need to accomplish. And we notice that a lot of the placards and signs that you see, the font is exactly the same. The helmets are the same. Even the tents start showing some repetition. Maybe that's because those are the only tents available to buy at Walmart or Target or Costco or whatever. I don't know, but there's a lot of similarities from one campus to another, all the way from California to upstate New York.
Yeah, and you know, it's another aspect of this is that those of us who are talking about this, you know, it's not only so organized at this level, it's not only so funded at this level, but there's an additional level where anybody who talks about this, right, their voices have to be suppressed so that this doesn't come out. And I've noticed this so many times. Whenever I speak about this, I will be very clear about drawing a distinction. I will be very, very clearly state, you know, there are many people who are protesting for genuine reasons, but there are a minority of people who are, you know, celebrating terrorism, anti-Semitic, neo-Nazis, being funded, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter how much I draw the distinction. The general public's response is that you're trying to demonize peaceful protests and you support genocide. So there's actually more layers to this. It's not just that, this is being funded and there's an alternative motive. It's that there is some level of indoctrination that is being applied to the masses, where we can't even talk about this without being attacked left, right, and center. That is what you call sweeping indoctrination. And that's the thing that really scares me. It is the lack of critical thinking. It's the way that you can say just the most common sense thing, and the response from the general public is so prickly, so uninterested in hearing it, that makes me feel I don't even know if we're close. I don't even know if we're close to people waking up to this at this point.